All right, hello everybody. My name is Amalia Weber. I'm the program specialist here at Rochester Hills Public Library, and I'd like to welcome you to this evening's program, How to Journal for Meditation. Before we get started, I'd like to take care of a few housekeeping details. Firstly, tonight's program will be recorded and available to view about 1 week from tonight on our YouTube page and on the RHPL website shortly after. We ask that audience members please silence or turn off their cell phones before we begin in order to avoid any disturbances during the presentation. Next, we'd like to thank the Friends of the Rochester Hills Public Library and their many fundraising efforts. It's thanks to their support that we can provide wonderful programming like today's presentation. Our next program is the second installment of our 2022 Summer Concert Series presenting the Royal Oak Blues Band. This will be an in-person event tomorrow, July 20th at 6 p.m. outside on the library's west lawn. In the case of bad weather, it will be moved inside here to the multipurpose room. You can sign up for that at calendar.rhpl.org. And now, without further ado, please welcome our presenter, Courtney Jones.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you, Amalia. I am so excited about this evening to share with each of you my process around journaling, specifically used for meditative purposes in your life. I know in this day and age, we can all use a little bit of slowdown and going in and getting it all out. Am I right on that? All right, so before we get started, I do want to give a little lay of the land and what you can expect from me this evening. First of all, in case you are visiting the library or not familiar, there are bathrooms right over here. You don't have to raise your hand and ask me to go. Just go if you need to use the restroom. Secondly, there is going to be an interactive element to what we do this evening. So I hope you have brought a journal or you have pen and paper. If you do not, there is some available at the desk over there. So please make sure you grab that. And please give yourself this time, your full attention. So that being said, you might need to turn off your phone or at least silence your phone and just be respectful of others. All right, so you might be wondering a little bit about me. And so I'm going to share that with you. Get here. All right, so for 35 years now, wellness has been a part of my life. And I, over the years, have taught yoga, Pilates, mindset, movement of all sorts. And I love helping others lead healthier, happier lives. But what makes me an expert on journaling is I have journaled since I was about 8 years old. I didn't realize what I was doing, but I was journaling. I remember as a birthday gift, my best friend had bought me a journal. It was green, it had a little tabby cat on the front cover, and I would scribble all my deepest, darkest secrets, and it became a habit. I did that my entire life. I actually brought some of my journals here. I brought one of my prized journals. This is the journal that I started the moment I found out I was pregnant and then twins. And then I literally scribbled in this the night after delivering. So this is a really special journal. My whole point is that journaling can become a habit for you, and it really can help you through life's joyful moments, life's challenging moments, life's moments in general. So I'm here to share all of this with you. And this is a meditative act. My goal is that you will walk out of here with a way to design a ritual for yourself every day or at least once a week. All right, so we've gone through the housekeeping. I want you to be here for yourself and committed for yourself. I've told you where the bathrooms are. You've got your pen and paper. Let's clear our minds. That's an important element. Why is that important? Okay, so never more than now we are busy beings. Humans have not changed, however, since our inception. And all the things that used to be about a saber-toothed tiger, those heightened emotions, are now happening on the daily, multiple times a day. And it's really, really important to learn how to slow down. I find that writing is a beautiful way to do that. All right. So, I don't want to show that just yet. I want you guys to feel really comfortable, because what often comes up when we talk about journaling, especially, let me just do a real quick pan here. Who already journals? Anybody? A couple people? Yeah. All right, so I have a lot of fresh meat. I love that. I love having a lot of new people that I can share this with. So the idea of journaling for some people feels like you have to create like this Hemingway-esque type masterpiece, and oh my gosh, I don't write. I don't know how to do that. And so really writing comes from within, and it really will get to a place, or you will get to a place where a lot of this flows. But I want you to get comfortable in just being who you are and expressing who you are. So I have a little quick activity. But first, I want us to take really deep breaths to kind of just clear the space, clear our minds, any busyness that might have happened before you walked into this space. So let's find a nice full breath in, taking in that inhale and really filling up. I want you to fill up to the top of your chest. And then exhale that breath out nice and slow, and just feel a sense of grounding. We'll do that again. Just this nice full breath in. You'll feel how your belly expands. You'll feel how your chest rises. You'll feel that breath maybe even splash into the back of your throat. And then again, exhale it out completely. One more for me. A nice full breath, and just let the moment ground and settle you. Exhaling all the air out. Nice. So I'm hoping we feel even a little more settled. And I want to take this time to remind you that this is really a safe space. I know I'm going to be sharing information about myself, and maybe some other people will, so it's a safe space. I know it's being recorded, but please feel like this is a very safe space, free of judgment. So my first activity, I'm going to pull up this slide, and we're calling this or that. And so you're just going to raise your hand and decide which one you prefer. We're going to go from cake and pie to state or U of M to dogs or cats. Are we ready? Warm us up a little bit. All right, let's go with the first one. Cake or pie? All right. Let's go with the next one. State or Michigan? Oh my gosh, you're killing me. Like, I wasn't expecting that, I'm not gonna lie. And the last one, dogs? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Or cats. Nice. All right, so no harm or foul in any of this, right? We expressed ourselves freely, it was easy, it was how we feel, it's our preference, it's our opinion. That is what journaling is all about. All right. So that being said, why journal? Especially when you use it as a means of meditation. It helps reduce stress. It helps us achieve our goals. It's also a confidence booster. It strengthens your memory. And my personal favorite is it helps you process emotions. Like I said, you don't have to be a writer, and don't get stuck around that. This evening, we are gonna fill up some pages, and we're gonna start with 4 ways to begin writing. So the first way there are 4 different distinct ways that I use my journal. And again, you can use them intermittent, you can intertangle, you can do all of it, okay? But it's kind of like to kind of get you started. And the first way is I use them as morning pages. So a lot of people will take time in the morning, wake up, sit for meditation, and then pull out a journal and start writing. Now, I wish I could say I came up with morning pages. I did not. This was coined by Julia Cameron, who was an artist who came up with a way to really hone in on your creativity. So the way that you do morning pages, and I often will do this, especially when I'm needing to be creative, is I will fill 3 pages no matter what. And so you're like, 3 pages? What do you write for 3 pages? I will literally write, I have nothing to write. What's going on in my head? Oh my gosh, I can't believe my husband said that. I will write whatever is floating around in my head. And believe it or not, in doing that, you are letting things go. It brings on a sense of calm. It brings on a sense of ease. And it allows you to get rid or get out those things that tend to keep us in a space of not moving. Paralysis analysis, if you've ever had that, if you've ever had overwhelm or anxiety, it's a wonderful practice to just sit and write the stream of thought that's coming into your head. And you'll find after you get those 3 pages done, you are all of a sudden centered. So 3 pages typically, because you can really have a lot going on up there, take 10-15 minutes. But tonight I thought we would do just a page of random what is popping into your mind. And I'm going to go ahead and set the timer, and I'm going to give us about 5 minutes on the clock, and you'll see how much you get written in the page on your page at that time. Again, nobody's looking at this. You don't have to share this unless you choose to, but it'll give you a taste of how you feel. So before we start this exercise, I want you to just close your eyes. Okay, so your eyes are closed, and I want you to take note of how you feel in this moment. Do you feel a little anxious? Are you hungry? Are you tired? Are you angry? None of this is wrong. It's just what you're feeling in this moment. And really hone into that experience, that feeling. And now go ahead and open your eyes, and I have started the 5 minutes. I want you to write whatever is coming into your mind, nothing more. So this isn't, poetry time or it's time to start that nonfiction book you were planning on writing. It is truly you writing the stream of thoughts that continue to rise. All right. So I'm curious, did anyone fill a page? Did anyone fill 2 pages? No? Yeah. So in morning pages, the thought is that you would fill 3 pages. Now you can write really big if you need to make that happen quickly. No shame in that. But it is an interesting concept. And I'm curious for feedback. How did that feel for you? Anybody?
It's much, it it takes more to write your thoughts than to just think them, especially if you're anxious. You know, for thoughts to run, they can run through your mind quickly, but when you have to use your hand and deliberate on writing letters, and, you know, it is naturally very calm.
So maybe your thoughts were feeling maybe anxious, but as you wrote them down, there was a sense of untangling that for you. That's really interesting. That's actually profound. Anyone else?
Yeah, I noticed that I didn't know what to start writing, but as I started to write, my train of thought kept getting more and more and more, and I could see where I only filled a half a page, but I could see where I could fill 3 pages in the morning pretty easy.
Yeah, and how did that feel once you kind of turned off that filter and just kind of tapped into just starting to write for you?
It was like stuff just started coming out, you know, without me having to think about it, you know, and it made me think even further about what I wrote and how to amend things and different things like that.
When I started writing about all the things that went wrong today. And I got about 3 or 4 things in, and I'm like, that's a lot of bad stuff. Maybe there's some good things that happen. So I started looking for the positive things that happened to me.
Yeah.
And I noticed I changed the direction of where I was going.
Yeah. I love that. Anybody else want to share?
For me, it was difficult to write emotions. Because, for example, my daughters are living in Mexico, so for me it was difficult to write how I miss them. So I think for me it's the first time that I'm trying to write something, and emotions, share emotion, and after that, read all the emotions. It's like things.
Yes, I would agree with that a lot, especially as I have over the years reread my journals, and we'll go into that in a little bit. So at the beginning of this exercise, I had asked how you were feeling, and you kind of put a label on that. How are you feeling now? After you sat and kind of wrote, did any of that change for you? I know, you started out about all the bad things in your day, and now you're writing, okay, maybe I need to shift that a little bit. What I like about this kind of journaling is it kind of brings that stuff that's floating in our head to the surface, and you had that experience. And what's nice about that, or what's positive about that, is you can start to see how that it's words. It's not always truth. And that's a very, very powerful place to be when we are processing our emotions, how we're feeling, missing our kids. We can then kind of learn to maybe shift some of that energy in a way that then isn't living up in here and creating discomfort in our actions and in the way we're being. So awesome, I love it. So that takes me into our second way of journaling, and this one, I use all 4 of these techniques. That's why I came up with this, and that's why I put this in the presentation. But this one, I think, is a powerful one that everybody at some point uses, even though they don't know they don't call it this, and that would be goal setting. So goal setting in our lives is a powerful tool to get to where we want to be. And again, you can take from what your morning pages reveal, and you can start to think about some of the things that you want for yourself in your daily life. And a goal can be, maybe for you, visiting your children. That could be a goal. A goal could be, I want to write a book. And then you take that long-term goal and then you shrink it to what you need to do short-term. So then it becomes a short-term. And then you shrink it even more to daily action. And when you get in the habit of journaling, you can go back to that daily action every day as something you check in upon. Does everybody get what I mean when I say that? So I want to give you an example. Let's use the example of getting published with a book. You want to write a book and get it published. That would be your long-term goal. Short-term goal is going to be something that you need to think about hitting every week, maybe every month, and perhaps that's every week I need to spend at least 4 hours writing every week. That is your short-term goal. So as you are coming into your morning meditation and you start thinking about how all this can unfold for you, that becomes part of what you put out and what you create for yourself. A fun term is manifest. That's a big term that a lot of people use, but people have done it. Have you ever thought, I really want this, and the next thing you know, it happens? That's pretty much what we're talking about. That short-term goal is something that you need to check in on. And then there's the daily action that goes with the goal. So the daily action, let's say I'm going to keep up with I want to write and get a book published. Short-term goal, I need to be writing at least 5 hours a week at minimum. I mean, that's really a bare minimum. Daily, I need to set a timer for, say, 30 minutes, and I have to write 30 minutes for this book. Not journaling, not pen pal, not texting, not, updating my Facebook, but literally writing with that intention. And it's so powerful. And then every morning when you wake up, you can open that journal and you can look and say, okay, I've got this goal. How are my daily actions coming? And am I doing my daily actions to reach that short-term goal that I either have for a week or a month, so that my long-term goal of a book happens? And so I personally, I would love to say I love goal setting, but I don't. I probably live a little more by the seat of my pants. However, the things that I have achieved have absolutely gone into the goal setting. So I thought it would be fun. I'm only going to set the clock for about 3 minutes. And I'll see how everybody's doing. If I see heads coming up, then I know we're done, because our time is, I want to keep moving. I want everybody to pick a goal that they have for themselves that can be something that you can then have as part of what we're building for you, which is that routine and ritual around doing this journaling for yourself. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and set the clock. I'm going to put 3 minutes on, but if I see heads popping up, and remember, you don't have to share this. This is personal for you. But I want you to think about the steps, setting the goal. What is the long term? What is the short term? And what is the daily action that is required of you to reach that long term goal? All right, so how did that feel as part of something that you would do daily? Any shares? Nobody? Thank you.
Significantly less overwhelming. So I put down paying off my student loans, and so when I think about that, I go, oh, gosh, I hate that. So it's just kind of nice to bring it down.
Yes, I love hearing that, and I agree with you. It's kind of like, there's this saying, how do you eat, I don't know, an elephant or something like that, and it's like one bite at a time. It's that kind of philosophy, and it really is true. Now, the thing about goal setting is you can do this in your journal once every 6 months, and kind of just be refreshed with the daily actions. And that makes it really nice. And again, easy to think about, as opposed to, I have to pay off this loan, or, in my world, it's always about, weight. Like, if you've ever tried to lose a few pounds, it's a lot easier to think, well, today I need to eat this and walk and drink water, as opposed to, I want to lose however much weight you want to lose. Did anybody else want to share? Okay, so we're going to move on. So the next idea around getting your journal out, journaling, and using it as a tool is recollecting. And I absolutely love this because, again, I have so many old journals that it is one living history that I actually think about, because I lost my mom a couple years ago, and like, those are the things you really do treasure about somebody when they're gone. So like, all these journals, someday my kids are gonna be able to read this, so it's very cool. But then also, it is great for you to process what is happening in your life. And that is probably the way that I use my journaling the most, recollecting. So what does that kind of look like? It's basically an account of my week or current events. And I will often start with the date. I always date my journal. And I will begin with, like today, I'm not kidding, I said, it's so hot out. It has really been, we're getting a lot of hot weather. And then I will go into what's going on in current affairs. I will talk about what I'm feeling. We had just gone to Chicago. I talked about Chicago, how Chicago was crazy. We didn't know it was the taste of Chicago and thought we'd go down to the city. All the stuff, right? So recollection is a great way to, one, journal, two, document your life. And that too can be a way to get it out. Remember, when all this stuff is up here, it tends to cloud how we operate in our daily life. Can anyone think of, has there been an experience that you kind of have fogginess around now that it's past? So I had shared with you earlier that this journal of mine that I purchased when I found out I was pregnant and started journaling. And so the first entry in this journal is December 6, 1999. And it goes through my daughters being toddlers. And it is so cool to read now as opposed to what I was as a young mom. And that to me is the power of journaling. It is a way to reflect on where you've been in the present moment. So for me, and it was funny because I never really thought it was a big deal. I was just doing it. And then I gave it to my daughter. I was like cleaning out a drawer or whatever, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've never shown you this. And she like started crying, reading my thoughts on her and what I felt about her. And in my mind, it was just my daily, right? So those words are powerful, and what you feel is meaningful, and putting that on paper that someday someone, when you're gone, will read and know a little bit more about who you are or what you felt about them. To me, it's like the most powerful thing you can do. And I go back to losing my mom, and my brother came across 3 letters she had written to each of her children, 1 letter to each of us, like how she felt. So there's so much power in taking the time to do this type of writing. So I want to give us just a little bit, and I want you to think about what you would say to someone who you're really, really close to. It could be family, it could be a pet, but just putting words down, recollecting thinking about a time that you had with them in the recent time that you would want someday for them to be able to say, oh my gosh, I had no idea that this is what this person felt. Because sometimes it's easier to put it down on paper than it is to say to somebody. This one, we're gonna break after, and my plan was to break at a quarter till. So we are perfect timing on this. Let's give this one 4 minutes and then we'll break. All right, so maybe start wrapping that up. I'm curious on feedback. When you were recollecting a special time with someone special in the recent time, how did that feel? Releasing?
Releasing.
Yeah.
Like I released some of the tension that I had about what I wrote about.
And see, that's the thing, and that's to me the power of this practice is you get it out, and that's why I actually use that word, like get out these things. And I love that you said that, because the reality is there are things in my journal that I'm like, I might need to get rid of these before I go. Like, I don't know if I want, it's not all, rainbows and unicorns. And that's awesome. Thank you for that.
So, while recollecting my experience, when you write about the good moments, you feel happy. But when you recollect the sad moments, you relive those sad moments and again be sad.
And you're again sad, you relive it and again sad. Yeah. I can completely relate to that. But I love, and we're going to go into this in our next section, I love how journaling, and this is all kind of building to this, is truly a tool for processing what you're feeling and letting go of what you need to let go of. So you're right, you can in recollecting, you will feel certain emotions even in writing them, but it's amazing how time will pass and you will come back to that with a different set of eyes. And I think that's the power of this practice. You had a comment. Yes.
So when you're recollecting, are you limiting it to that day? So whatever, the danger is, or the propensity is to go, just to let your mind wander back to things that maybe happened a really long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah, like to me, it's really what's fresh memory, not going back. But there have been moments where something in the present might trigger something that's happened. We've all have a family member. We're all adults here. Well, maybe not all of us, but, we've all have maybe a family member with a relationship that has friction. And maybe it is July 20th and you wake up that morning and you get a phone call from them and that friction flares its ugly head and you start writing. It's a cloudy morning and I heard from Joe and he makes me so mad and I can't believe he's doing this again. And remember that, and it'll kind of flow into that. But to me, you could just as much say how excited you are about Joe. So it's really just, to me, it's like this living, breathing explanation of what's going on in the moment. But it's not quite the moment because it's already happened. Does that make sense? Anyone else? All right, so I want us to break. There's a couple things. You guys know where the bathrooms are at. When we come back, I'm gonna go into a pretty deep process of journaling, and it is very much based in shifting things in your mind. And it is, to me, a huge, powerful process. So it's a little meatier than what we've done so far, so just be aware of that. I also have just this line sheet of paper. I not only do these types of workshops, I also teach movement, I do health, wellness coaching, and I have a fantastic, if I do say so myself, email list. I typically send out a weekly email. It's always positive. Let me think of, like, I send out great recipes or stuff to uplift you. I talk about ways to meditate, ways to be more mindful, those types of things. Never anything that's going to bring you down. If you would like to be a part of that email, because I know we all get a lot, you can just put your email list. Please write legibly because I have to input these in myself. And I will set that right over here. So let's go ahead. I'm going to set the timer once again, and we'll just take a quick 5-minute, just little recess break. If you need to stretch your legs, if you have questions for me, something more personal nature, please don't hesitate to come up and talk to me. I promise I don't bite. I don't. Thank you all. Okay, so I think our 5 minutes are, oh yeah, they have ticked off. All right, so welcome back. We're gonna get into a little bit more meatier topic, and that is the topic of processing. And so processing is what happens when you, most likely when you've had a bad day. When something is creating upset or maybe even creating anxiety, worry, frustration, anger. And sometimes it can just be a day, but even in a deeper sense, it can be a way that we operate in our life. And so it's really, really powerful to start to learn about these inner dialogues. So, processing is what is your inner dialogue saying to you? Okay, so I'm going to use myself as the example, and I have no shame in my game in saying this. I have struggled with anxiety my entire life. I can remember being a little kid overeating Halloween candy because it made me feel better and less anxious. So, how I cope with that with my writing and journaling is when I have days that I feel extra anxious, I go into doing this processing. And it is this process that I'm going to share with you. So this past weekend, I joke a lot, but I'm being serious now. I went to visit my daughter, one of my daughters in Chicago. She moved there a month ago. And it's a hard move to send your baby child to the big city. So for whatever reason, the weekend was riddled with anxiety, like a lot of anxiety, trouble sleeping, worrying, woke up in the middle of the night, felt like the heart fluttering, the whole bit, and got home and was just tired upon tired. Because if you've ever struggled with anxiety, you are living up here all the time, and then you can only live there for so long, and when you come down, it's like, oh my gosh. And so I got home and I filled a lot of pages about this, like, what is going on? And what I recognized is that I had this internal dialogue going on. I'm not going to share too much about I will. I'll share it. The internal dialogue was fear. Fear around my child being in this big city, worried about her, worried if she can handle what she needs to handle. I mean, there's a lot that's going on in the cities. We all know that. And just this constant worry. As I dove deeper and deeper, I started realizing that fear was more about me than it was about her. She's doing fine. The fear for me is, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? My kids are moving on and doing fantastic, you know? And my role has changed significantly in a short period of time. But on the surface, I'm anxious. That's what processing does. It was me really dissecting what's going on. What's my inner dialogue? How does that make me feel? What am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? And it literally is an archaeological dig, because what's coming out on the surface is not really the experience that you are having that's creating the emotion. Our inner dialogue is a beast. It is often not telling you the truth. It's never telling you the truth. That's why it's really powerful to get in the habit, when you have those feels, to dissect them, and there's no place better than to dissect them in your journal. So I am going to create a scenario, I've already given you this scenario about anxiety, but I'm going to give you another scenario that is, I remember this happening with my sister, and so not just the person who came and asked me a question, but this is good. So my sister, she always says, I don't read. She says that all the time, and she's very intelligent. I don't read. I don't like reading. And here I am, like reader, I read all the time. What do you mean you don't like to read? I'm just not good at it. I'm not good at it. Well, when she says that, and it's like, what do you mean you're not good? You start to get her, that is something she has taken on, and her inner dialogue tells her that she cannot read. She's not a good reader. That's her inner dialogue. This is a college-educated woman who's at the top of her game in the business world. This is not somebody, she's never, so she continues with believing that. Well, one time she shared the story with me. This is all true, guys. She shared the story with me in 4th grade. My dad had come to the classroom. You know how parents can come visit. And the teacher called on her to read the paragraph. Now, my dad was self-made military man, very, very strict. The exact opposite of me. And very, very hard on us because of his background. And she started, this is a 4th grader, 10 years old. She started reading what the teacher told her to read, and she might have mixed up a word or two in the sentence. And my dad, who she highly respected and loved, at that time said, that doesn't say that. You misread that, told her that. My sister is 54 and still believes she can't read or doesn't know. Do you see how a lot of our inner thoughts are related to things that happened a long time ago and are related to labels that people put on us? And now if you were to, my dad's passed away, but if you were to have asked my dad, he probably didn't even remember that ever happened. Yet to this day, my sister has this belief system. So inner dialogues follow all of us, and they are based on how you were raised, cultural belief, are you male or female, socioeconomics, all that comes into play in that inner dialogue that's constantly at play. I always like to give the example of myself, or no, I'm even going to go with my daughters. They were born in 2000 versus my grandmother, who was born in the South in 1920. Think of her inner dialogue about the world versus my daughter's dialogue about the world. And I was raised by my mom and dad, but I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. So she put a lot of that on me, even though I try not to see it. So my point is inner dialogue is really, really important to understand and to identify, because it's not truth. I'm going to say that again. It's not truth. Now, I'm not suggesting. I have a child who has a hard time reading. She, in first grade, was diagnosed with a learning disability, and that is truth for her. That she has a tougher time reading, but I never let her say, I can't read, because it's not true. Does that make sense? So we have to start to hear what our voices are telling us. By voices, I mean what's going on in our head. So I want to just kind of hit the pause button, because that's kind of a heavy concept, and see if anyone has any questions on it before we proceed. So go ahead.
Help you break free from some of those things, like what happened to your sister? Because I imagine that's just been in her for so long, for so many years.
I will tell you, my sister still doesn't like to read. I mean, she still has that, and that's the reality. That's the thing. The stuff that really gets put on us when we're little really does stick. And you know, as somebody who had parents who did the best they could, you know, and I've done the best I could, I understand it. And you still have to understand that it's not truth, and you can move past it. And so that's where mindfulness, meditation become very, very powerful tools when you journal. So, what does it mean to think about mindfulness around your inner dialogue? So often we make assumptions. So often we have this voice. I guarantee if we all closed our eyes, there'd be something being said, right? We all know what that feels like. It's really powerful to sit, hear that, allow stuff to come up, and then to be like, that's really an interesting thing that my mind is telling me today, but it doesn't make it truthful. So the way that we move past that is we start to recognize it as almost like a language. So I'm going to use myself, because I've shared with you my struggles, my lifelong struggles with anxiety, which is a perfect example of how it doesn't go away. You learn how to manage it. And the way that I've learned to manage it is to recognize that a lot of my anxiety and the fears that come up in my language and inner dialogue are not true. So when I hear that, so I'll have mornings where I'll wake up and I'll be feeling that, and I'll be thinking, okay, this is not true. What does my language look like, sound like, feel like? Doom and gloom, upset, worry, anxious. So when I know I'm in that place, I can kind of write about that. Why are you feeling this? Why is this coming up? And then, and this is the big thing, you have to find evidence. Your brain needs that. You have to find evidence that it's not true. So I'm going to go back to my Chicago experience and how I was feeling really anxious. A lot of what I was writing was the feeling. I'm worried this, I'm worried about that. And then I really kept digging into that and realized, okay, this isn't about Sydney, this is about you. And then I was able to realize, okay, what are you afraid of? It's not your child. You're not afraid of that, really. What are you afraid of? And it's my own stuff. And so digging even deeper into that, I learned, okay, I have to take action to shift this around. So once you hear the dialogue, you kind of can go deeper into it and kind of figure out to the depth of it. But then you have to take steps to get out from that. And the steps to take are to just kind of have proof, because your brain needs that it's just not real. Like, so, okay, I'm 51 now, and something happens when you turn 50. If you haven't reached it yet, you just wait. And it's physical, it's mental, it's all those things. And that's really what's going on. So my inner dialogue had me feeling anxious for my kid. I figured out it wasn't about my kid, it was about me. It was about, I'm 51, and what am I gonna do with the rest of my life? My whole life's been my kids and they've moved out. What step? It makes me feel horrible. It makes me feel like I don't have a purpose. That's some scary stuff. What? And then I was like, whoa, wait. This is all BS. You have a purpose. But do you see how the mind can do all that? And you are operating, I'm operating, feeling like I don't have a purpose. Me. 2 people who I haven't seen in 8 years just came up and said, we saw it was you, and we huh? Yes, I have a purpose, right? So do you see how journaling can be so powerful in processing these emotions? So what I had shown you the prior 3, which was the recollecting and the morning pages and the goal setting, those are great tools, and those are great to use on those mornings when you feel a certain way. But when you are in that place, and we're all humans in this room, and I've taught yoga for 12 years now straight, and to a lot of faces in this community, and I hear often people will say, do you have a crystal ball after my class? Like, how do you know that's happening? Because I'm human. We're all having the same experience. We're all having some sort of experience that is very similar. Trust me, way more unites us than divides us. Way more. So you can utilize this processing tool when you have those moments, when those fears come up, when those frustrations arise, when you are worried, anxious, scared, mad. So I want to play a little processing, and the way that we're going to do that is identifying an overwhelming inner dialogue that you have. You don't have to share this, but I do think it's powerful to write down what you notice kind of comes into your head, and something that you're thinking, I need to put some steps to this that are gonna flip the script on this. So I'm gonna set the clock. I'm gonna give this one 4 minutes, and if I see heads popping up, we'll break sooner. But again, inner dialogue is that stream of thought that you put on your morning pages. Sir, I don't know your name in the front here, but you put it, you nailed it. That's why I was like, oh my gosh, she said it right out of the gate. Those morning pages and how that was coming out, and then it's that.
Please.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, so that is time. I know how personal inner dialogue can be and feel, so I'm not going to ask for shares on that, but I'm curious about your experience when you really start to listen to that. And 4 minutes isn't a lot of time. You can do this for 40 minutes. I mean, you can really start to get to the depth of that, but I'm curious how it felt.
Dialogue, because I really believe that what I go through in life no one else can understand, even with our parents and no other person, because I am the unique piece. That the experience that I'm going through, even in the same household or in the same workplace, so it's kind of like discussing myself with the most suitable person, that's myself, and not that what I have learned that to suppress those ideas or those thoughts and lessons I have learned growing up, that not to feel sad, that means that, like not to listen to that part of my brain or my feelings that is sad. Why is it sad? And thinking about that, just try to shut it off or just push it down. So it kind of like flows as a conversation, so it kind of then that actually makes sense of peace.
Peace, yeah. Well, that's the thing. If you push it down, I mean, we're all of us are wired, right? And some of us, we all have feelings. Some of us are just able to maybe push them down, or some of us are raised in environments where you don't share. I know that was one of my experiences, like you never shared your feelings, and here I was like the most sensitive thing on the planet, like, felt everything. And so yes, it can be a tool for sure to bring you peace, and again, to process those moments where you are sad, because that is valid. It is valid to have sadness from time to time. It is valid to be angry. It is valid to feel joy. People push a lot of emotion down, and it is my firm belief that it is toxic to do so. And we want to feel that lightness. We would, that's why it's so powerful to put words on paper and release. It's so powerful to do that.
I wanted to share a little bit. I work with a team of people, and last year I became the department chair of that team of people. And becoming the department chair, I had to really think about what did I like and what did I not like about what the previous person did.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wrote it down. And I wrote down the steps that I wanted to do, that I wanted to make to change to become the best department chair that I could be.
Yeah.
And it was great, because then I kind of, as the year went by, I was able to look at what I had written down, and I could say, well, that worked, but that didn't work.
Yeah.
And then I can kind of move on. And it helped me break something down that I hadn't really done that before.
Yeah, it helped you get it out. It really is this process of this stuff being inside of us that needs to be released. And it can be as simple as, figuring out, what you're going to do for the weekend. It can be as deep as, I'm sad about this and I can't share it with anybody, so I'm going to share it in my journal. It can be, I am mad and I can't tell you how many times, with my husband, I've been married for 26 years, and I will have those moments where I'm like, like angry. And it helps me get it out. It really does. And then I go back and I think, oh my God, if he ever read that. But, it is what it is. All right. So now, I hope that this has inspired you to start journaling. Every day? Maybe not. Maybe it's every week, maybe it's once a month, but I do think it is a powerful practice to begin. I journal at least 3-4 times a week, have for years. And I get to where if I've got 2 or 3 days that I haven't, I need a journal. How do you set up your ritual? So don't worry, these prompts, they're on your pages. You can journal any time of day, but I think it's powerful to do it at the same time of day. I'm a morning person, so my journal time is in the morning. But maybe you're a night owl. You can journal at night. Maybe you have lunch break and that's a perfect time. Pick that for yourself. Also, pick a place. For me, I have what I call my little Zen-den, and I go in there. I always start coffee, I take my vitamins, I sit down, and I journal. It's very ritualistic for me, and I think that that strengthens the desire to do it. It's kind of like brushing your teeth. When I talk about it being a ritual, I light a candle, usually in the fall and winter when it's, mornings are darker, or in the morning, it is part of the ritual for me to raise the shade in the room. And it, again, stirs this desire, and it brings me to this place to get some words on paper. Lastly, make a commitment. Make a commitment for yourself to do this. It is a wonderful gift to yourself. Think of all that we've discussed this evening. Think about morning pages. Maybe you're stuck and you just need to get it out, all the stuff. Or processing. Maybe right now your inner dialogue is being a beast and you need to work through that. All of this is a gift to yourself, so be committed in doing this journaling. So I want to field some questions. Does anybody have any questions for me? No? And really quick, your handout gives you some more journal prompts. I can't speak. And these are great ways to get you started. I know it can be kind of scary. It can feel like, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to do this. You're staring at a blank sheet of paper, and it can feel daunting. But trust me, once you start writing, it will flow. Everybody, I also put down the way to do processing, because to me that really is a great resource on how to get rid of that stuff. Lastly, this is how we can stay connected. I see some of you are going to be on my email list, and like I said, that is once a week. I typically send out an email. I also have an Instagram account where I post a lot of stuff. And my handle for that is at MsCourtneyJones.com. You can also send me an email at bodymindunbound@gmail.com. I do love getting emails, and I will respond to you. So if after this evening you get home and you start writing and you're like, what was that? Or you have a question, don't hesitate to send me an email. I am more than happy to respond. Lastly, you can check out my website, bodymindunbound.com. Like I said, I don't just do journaling and mindset and meditation. I teach yoga. I also am a health and wellness coach, and I actually have new rounds starting up in September. So lots of good things. Did anybody have any final questions for me?
When you do your journaling, are you writing it out by hand, or are you at a computer typing it out?
I am old school. I write it out by hand. But I love your question, because on break, I had a question, what do you do with all the journals? This individual is a minimalist and doesn't want to have hundreds of journals lying around. Or boxed up, really, they get boxed up. But yes, I handwrite, but you can always do online. They have really great online. You could even open up Google Sheets and create your own online, which is great. But there's just something like, for me, I don't do Kindles. I read books. I just like the paper. So.
See, I notice I'm probably the oldest person in the room, and as I've gotten older, my penmanship has gotten shakier, so I personally don't like to write now, because when I write it reminds me that I'm old. Like don't have control over my fingers, so I like to write at a computer because the letters come out perfect if you hit the right key.
Yeah.
So, and then you can revise what you write. When I was in school years ago in English, you had to write papers, but the mechanics were real bad. Then you had to type them up, so if you made one error, pull the sheet out, and then you had to type it over. You usually made another error, so it was very cumbersome. Now with word processors and the spell checkers, it's much easier to write. And you can make revisions and it's no big deal. So as I noticed from, time I was a student till now, and I think my writing's better now because mechanics of just writing are better.
Yeah.
If you use a computer.
Yeah, and that's really preference. I think that's great too. There's all types of apps and websites where they save everything, and you don't, auto save. You don't have to worry about that. So that's really valid. And I hear you. I can remember being in college and winding the paper in the typewriter and having the little strip of white out that you would put. So I remember that, yeah. Any other questions? So if you do, please don't hesitate to ask. When it comes to journal resources, like where do I really do like, Shinola makes great journals. They're my favorite. You can get your monogram on them. They come in all different colors and they're fully lined. They're my favorite. The size of them is just like nice. They're perfect on a bookshelf. But of course they have all kinds of fun and fancy things. You can just get ruled college notebook paper like you were given today and staple it together. And the last thing I want to say, if you don't want to save your journals, you can toss them. You can burn them up. I know somebody who does that. He's very in the moment, very present. And for him, he fills a journal like that, and he's like, that's the past, and he burns it, and that's part of his ritual. So it's really your preference, how you want to create, how you want to go about it. It's all up to you. There's no wrong way to do this. Thank you all so much. I know it was so hot coming out here this evening. Much needed, hopefully break coming up, but I appreciate each of you for taking the time to be here and to share this evening with me. Thank you.